There's a couple of really interesting things that have been going on here lately, but one of the more interesting things has been the high anticipation for the new Christopher Nolan film. It's always a big deal when Christopher Nolan is getting his new film put together. Now, we already know that his new film is going to be called Oppenheimer, kind of based around the guy who kind of helped create the atomic bomb, and it's going to be starring Cillian Murphy, who has worked with Christopher Nolan before. So that's exciting. However, we've also just got more cast announcements, because a couple of days ago, we found out that the cast was going to be growing, right? Emily Blunt had joined the role. I mean, that's amazing in and of itself. Emily Blunt is incredible. But now there's a couple of more big names to add to this new Christopher Nolan. On top of Emily Blunt and Cillian Murphy, we've now found out through Variety that Robert Downey Jr. and Matt Damon are also joining this Christopher Nolan project. This comes to us from the folks over at Variety who write, Robert Downey Jr. and Matt Damon will star in Christopher Nolan's upcoming World War II epic Oppenheimer, a drama about the development of the atomic bomb, which I just think this movie I think is going to be nuts. I cannot wait. It's not clear who Downey Jr. and Damon will be playing in the film. Nolan is assembling a star-studded cast, one that includes Cillian Murphy as J. Robert Oppenheimer and Emily Blunt as his wife, Catherine. And guys, listen, I was already excited about this movie just because, again, it's a major event in Hollywood whenever Christopher Nolan's going to be doing his next film. I even like Tenet. I didn't understand half of Tenet the first time I watched it. I still liked it when I first watched it, but it wasn't until I had a chance to finally watch it at home with subtitles on, because look, we all know this, right? The one that we've talked about this a lot. The one thing Christopher Nolan really does need to work on is the instructions he gives to his audio designers and how they mix audio. Because sometimes the dialogue is just, I mean, it's been a thing with Christopher Nolan films, right? Sometimes you just can't understand the dialogue. That being said, I like Tenet. I love Dunkirk. I thought Dunkirk was incredible. My favorite Christopher Nolan film is not The Dark Knight. Now, my favorite Christopher Nolan film is actually Insomnia. I love Insomnia. That movie to me is just bonkers, crazy good. And of course, he's got all of his others as well. Robert Downey Jr. has been an interesting case study though, because, and I'm not trying to draw direct parallels here, but when you go back, you remember he was pretty hot in Hollywood for a while. He was pretty hot in Hollywood. And then through, let's just call it self-sabotage. We won't go into all of Robert Downey Jr.'s past drama. He's done a great job kind of bringing himself back from all of that. So we won't rehash all that, but he did self-sabotage his career, kind of started a comeback, self-sabotage his career again. And he was pretty much done as an A-list star in the business. And when all of a sudden John Favreau decided to take a shot on him and Marvel bought into it and made Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man, which caught a number of people by surprise. And by the way, Kevin Cow sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Kevin. It caught a number of people by surprise. And ever since then, he's been rolling. And then, of course, a number of years ago, some people forget about this, his original contract was coming up, and it was looking for a little while like he wasn't going to be able to make a deal to continue on playing Iron Man. They were too far apart. And then all of a sudden, he did that movie, The Judge, that did not do well at the box office. And then all of a sudden he signed back up to be Iron Man again. So he's back, and then he finishes his run as Iron Man, because you guys know I've told you, I guarantee you within the next 3, 4, 5 years, he will be back as Tony Stark in the MCU. I guarantee it. Anyway, but he ends off his run in Iron Man and he gives us Doolittle. And Doolittle is a whole kind of special awful that deserves its own kind of book to be written about it. Not like the worst film in Hollywood history, don't get me wrong, but it was pretty bad. But he's still Robert Downey Jr. The dude is so loaded with natural talents, incredible. And Matt Damon, to me, Matt Damon is just one of these guys where maybe, if to use a sports analogy, maybe Matt Damon is never the MVP, but he's always, every single year for like 15 years in the league, in the top 5 of MVP voting. You know what I mean? You know, some guys will be an MVP for 2 or 3 years and then drop off. Matt Damon is always like right there. His talent level is incredible. I loved him in The Last Duel, even though nobody went to go see it. I loved him in that. Obviously, The Martian and everything he's done with the Bourne films and everything. Love him. Adding all that to this already great source material, this true story, in Oppenheimer with a director like Christopher Nolan. And right now, the cast is going to grow, but we already know that the cast is Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, Robert Downey Jr., Matt Damon in a film directed by Christopher Nolan. 2 words. Yes, please. I mean, this sounds great. This sounds unbelievable. I'm very excited about it. Question is for you guys. What do you think about the addition of Robert Downey Jr. and Matt Damon to the new Christopher Nolan film, Oppenheimer? I think it sounds great. Maybe you don't really think so. Maybe you didn't like Tenet. You're like, yeah, Tenet had a great cast too, and look what happened to that. I don't know. Whatever you guys are feeling about it, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.